So again, so we go back to the mind trap. Where's coming from? And from my experience, it can come either from a lot of, they have a lot of shape and colors, and it's very personal. It's like a fingerprint. But it can come from traumas, trauma that are not overcome, or and voices, voices outside voices. So the social voices, education voices, or whatever you want, the voices outside yourself.
Hey there, folks. Welcome to today's episode of the Strategy and Leadership Podcast. My guest today is Hortense Le Gentil. She is the author of The Unlocked Leader. And for those of you that have listened to the podcast for some time, you know that we try to avoid consultants and folks that are deep experts in their field as much as possible. But there's some really, really great ones. And this is, I think, what we're in store for you today. And I'll tell you the thing that really sold it for me, and I did mention this to Hortense, is when you have testimonials from folks like Ralph Lauren, Paul Gasol, the president of Levi's, and many, many more for praise for your book. I just think that there must be substance to that. And whether we're talking about leadership, whether we're talking about horses, I know Hortense will have lots to say. So, Hortense, merci pour nous joindre aujourd'hui. C'est super et j'ai très hâte à parler avec vous. And of course, we're in Canada. Well, she's in New York. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's an honor and a pleasure to be able to chat with you today.
Oh, this is my honor, Anthony, and merci beaucoup. Et je parle rarement français sur un podcast, donc je profite pour parler français. Merci, je suis
Well,
ravie d'être là.
absolument. And we do have literally every single country in the world listens to our podcast. So some of our French speaking listeners will appreciate that, whether in France or countries in Africa. But let's stick to English for most of it. Hortense, tell our listeners a little bit about your life, your background, your many lives, and then the work that you do right now.
Okay. So I was raised and born in France, as my accent can say. And I took the scenic roads to arrive where I am today. So I had many, many, many lives. So the first one was with horses. I was surrounded by horses. I was raised with horses, and I was a show jumper. And it was all about horses. It was my love, my best friend, my passion, everything. And at that time, I didn't realize, because this is only when you can look backwards that you understand and you can connect the dots. But I learned a lot about leadership at that time, because it's so, this is the only sport when you are two beings. So it's all about how you connect with your horse. So what is your vision? How you vision where you want to go, how to communicate that. And it's all about empathy also. So how do you feel your horse? Because of course a horse doesn't talk, right? So you don't know, and how to communicate, and how to do a great job with your horse. So it was the first part of my life was with that. And then I moved to my second passion. Don't ask me why, but it was all about the American dream. And so I really wanted to go to US. It was really, my dream. So I studied marketing both in Boston and in Paris. At that time, it was very rare, because I'm okay. I'm not 20 anymore, and at that time, it was, not very, again, very rare that you have an exchange. So it was great. It was wonderful. I had a wonderful time here in Boston. I came back to Paris, and I worked for large corporations. I worked for advertising. It was at that time it was Havas, yeah, and advertising agencies, communication. I worked for magazines, so a lot of fashion magazines and things like that. But at one point, Anthony, I felt like, it was not what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do is I always dreamed to be an entrepreneur. And for many reasons, I didn't do it. So it was time in my life to take those decisions. And it was really a turning point at that moment. I'm sure we will come back to that moment. And then I started, I quit everything and I started to become an entrepreneur. I became an entrepreneur in the recycling steel industry. So don't smile. Nothing to do with what I did before, but I'm a big believer of it. Life is a question of who you meet at one point and how open you are. And then I discovered this new world that I absolutely don't know. And I thought, oh my goodness, I can do a lot of things. There is no communication there. Then, not that I can have my team, I can run my company, I can do something for customer there. So for a decade, I was I was a partner. I had a business partner who was the opposite of me. He was he knew a lot, about engineering. So I just said that I didn't know anything about engineering and I wanted to learn. So I bring what I knew. So communication, marketing, I already had that view and how to manage people, my leadership. And my partner, taught me, the rest, and it was great. So for a decade, this is what I did. A lot of up and down, a lot of stories, a lot of things happened. And at one point, I said, okay, I want to do something else because it was fun. So, innovation, creativity, running a new business, but it was also a lot of fight. It was not that easy when you innovate, you are in the innovation, especially when you are in France, because after everything is all about politics. And then this is not this is not the part that I love, because I do prefer do things, inspire people, have ideas all together than, just, taking to a lot of time to politics. And then at one point, something happened. I was there listening to myself. I said, what is the next step for me? And a friend of mine came to me and said, Hortense, a friend of mine needs your help because he's an entrepreneur like you and you just love helping people and you're so good at that. So why, by the way, you don't become a coach? I just laughed at that time. I said, well, not really. I don't know what is a coach about, and I'm not going to become a coach because I am an entrepreneur. That's all. But I said, but I'm going to, of course, to help your friend. And then, okay, it was like he put a little seed in my brain. And I said, okay, so let's imagine that I am a coach. And what I learned, at least one thing that I learned in my life was if you do your own way, it will work, the door will open, uh, and it will work. If you want to change anything in yourself, it will not work. So I put this hat and I said, okay, let's see. Let's see how I would coach, someone. And then I just arrived and Anthony, it was amazing at that moment. It was like a puzzle and you see everything lead all together and in one hour, you understand, wow, everything makes sense now. Why I had this difficulty, why I changed here, why I am not like everyone, by the way. I don't have one path and that's all. And and you understand that personally and professionally, everything you did, everything you've been through led me to be there and to help people. And then, okay, I said, oh my goodness, I think I found my calling. Okay, it was time. But I felt so happy, and it was even physically, it was amazing. And I helped this person. 3 months later, he asked me to help another one and another one of very fast, very fast. In fact, for 3 years, I did both. I had my company and I was a coach. And after, okay, I realized that it was my path and I had to do it. So this is what I did. It was something like a decade ago. Then I met Marshall Goldsmith. I don't know if you know him. is a hope of leadership, we can say. And he honored me and asked me to be part of his special person as a what he called the MG 100 when he started everything, and be part of this amazing group of people. And I said, of course, yes. I was so honored, and I learned a lot. And then I started to go between, to travel a lot between Paris and US and the US. And it was my dream, because my dream was to come to New York, to come back to New York. And then after I had more American clients than French clients, and I moved to New York 5 years ago. And then now this is what I do full time. I coach. I talk about coaching. I talk about it's more than coaching. It's because actually I think that every coach is different, because it's a personal relationship. But my thing is I try to help people to free themselves from their mind traps that hold them back to be the leader they want to be a human leader, or even to be the person you want to be, because I believe that all of us, we are all leaders, because at the minimum, you are a leader of your life. So this is what I do with CEO and senior executives, and with friends and young people. And this is why I talk. I do a lot of podcasts, I write books, and I do a lot of things like that.
That's awesome. So I want to highlight for our listeners, just a couple of things. It sounds like you became a coach by accident, in the sense that you had never intended to be a coach, and through all of your life experiences, you got to this place, and it is like your destiny, for lack of a better word. But one of the things I want our listeners to recognize is that point where she got faced with a decision, and she could have said no right away. And she could have said, what can I do to become a coach? In which she would have tried to fix the solution. But, and Hortense, you can correct me if I said, hey, I'm going to, for a moment, just imagine the possibility. What could be possible if I stepped into this place? What could be? And it's like opening a door that I heard, and then it causes reflection. And by stepping through that door, just the consideration of it, then you look at all of your life experience to say, what like lended to that. So that's one that I thought was very interesting. The other thing I thought was cool about what you said, just how you view coaching. You are not a bulldoze coach, at least, and different coaches have different approaches. And what I think your gift is not just the message, but it's your how you deliver the message such that it resonates with somebody, for them to reflect in their own self because of the softness, the caring, the empathy, the understanding. And going back to the horses, I say, you can't inspire a horse to jump. You can't inspire a horse to be like, yes, you're going to be so great at this horse. Like, go ahead. It truly needs to be like connecting with them and having them take the leap, pun intended, for that next thing. So I guess my question to you is, we've talked about mind traps. You've talked about unlocking the idea of like stepping into that next place. What do you want our listeners to know as they take their next leaps into leadership? What are some of the things that you'd like them to reflect on? What are some of the things you'd like them to sit with? And yeah, we'll just go from there.
So thank you for your kind words and understanding. And okay, let me talk about the feeling of when you're a trap. So what I call a trap. All of us, it's happened to all of us. At one point in our life, it's a mindset or beliefs that help us, until now. And at one point, it doesn't help us anymore. And this is when it becomes mind traps. And it's perspective or things like that. So you feel it. We know when we are trapped. We feel, okay, what's going on? I cannot move forward. It doesn't work anymore like before. You are not very satisfied. You can even be aggressive, angry. You feel it. You feel what's happening then. And this is so if you recognize any of these symptoms, I would recommend just to stop to reflect. Okay, I am stuck. I'm stuck somewhere. So let's see how we can free ourselves from that, because we can stay here, but what is the purpose of it? If you are trapped somewhere, the problem is why does it matter? Is because you cannot it limits your performance, because you cannot connect correctly with yourself, you cannot connect correctly with others. So your performance as a leader, as a person, doesn't work. So, and it happened to everyone. So I'm going to share a story because it's easiest to understand. So, and this is my story. It happened again to everyone. I repeat, but because everyone can recognize something here, I think. So when I share my story just before, at one moment in my life, I felt lost. I felt I didn't belong, and it was not the right way for me. It was before I started to be, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So outside, everything was all right. But inside and inside my life, my personal life, professional life, no, it was not that. I knew that I could do better. I wanted to discover the world, to connect, I couldn't do that in that life. So of course, everything went south, and I got sick in bed for months, very sick. And then I had time to think. And then something happened. I had a dream. And my grandmother, the grandmother I just loved, she passed away at that time. She came in my dream and she told me, Hortense, you have to find the path of roses. I said, I didn't understand anything that she was talking about. I said, what is the path of roses? And where is it? And she just smiled at me, Anthony, and she just said, you know where it is. And she disappeared. So I was so furious because, she didn't give me the answer, right? And then that will be later when I will understand that what she meant was so important. What she meant was listen to your inner voice. You have to listen to your inner voice. And then when I started to do it, I started to free myself. And then this is what I recommend to everyone. And I am in this mission of freeing everyone. Find your own path. This is very important. And this is what I did. And your inner voice, how you listen to your inner voice, it's the first step is to be courageous, because you need courage.
Courageous, yeah.
Courage, yeah, courageous. You need courage because not that easy. We are afraid. We are used to do one way, and one day you have to change. So we are talking about leaderships. This is what we are talking about. Before moving from what I call the hero leader, having all the answers, to human leader. But how do we do that? So this is a guide. So the book is a guide, but this is a guide. So acknowledge your fear and have a conversation with your fears. Invite them to the table, but tell them that you're driving the show. So who will drive the show? And then start to track the source of your mind traps. Where is coming from? Where is coming from? So for example, if you feel like, okay, perfections, to be perfect, the quest of perfection help you until now. So it's happened very often. And it doesn't help you anymore because you cannot be perfect. Because in the world we are living, we need to be ready for the unexpected. And so you cannot have all the answers. And because the world change, people, want also to connect with you. So we need to change the way we lead. And we know that, but we are afraid of it. We're not used to do it. How to be a human leader, how to lead with empathy. That's not that easy. Where to start? So again, we go back to the mind trap. Where's coming from? And from my experience, it can come either from a lot of, they have a lot of shape and colors, and it's very personal. It's like a fingerprint. But it can come from traumas, trauma that are not overcome, or and voices, voices outside voices. So the social voices, education voices, or whatever you want, the voices outside yourself. And then if I go back fast to my story, what she meant, my grandmother, what she meant was, don't listen to the person who's going to say you cannot divorce, you cannot be an entrepreneur, you cannot change like that past your past. No, that's not possible. And when I did it, I started to free myself. And it happened also to my clients. And I had years ago, I had one of my clients was expected to be the CEO of the next CEO of the company. And then out of nowhere, of course, he had to be in front of the board, the process to become a CEO. And out of nowhere, his behavior changed completely. He became, very volatile. He was talking all the time, didn't listen. So, of course, he didn't get the job. And then he came to me and he told me, I don't know what happened. I don't know. So I said, okay, so let's figure out. We are going to track the source. And then in revisiting his life, he remembered that years ago, when he was a student, he had, in order to pass an exam, he had to be in front of a bunch of teachers. And one of the teacher didn't let him talk. So can you imagine this A student, very prepared? Okay, I'm ready now. And you cannot talk. He was always, cutting him off. So he was shocked. It was a trauma, because we are talking about trauma. I don't know if we would have time, but I would explain what I have in mind with trauma. It's a trauma. You have trauma with a capital T and little t. And it's a day-to-day trauma. And this is what I'm talking about, because it's not obvious. So it became a trauma. And then the teacher told him, young guy, I don't know what you're going to do in life, but I can promise you something. You will never be a CEO, because I can see, all your emotions on your face. Everything is written on your face. So, no. And then, can you imagine this poor guy, Anthony, who just left, thinking that first, okay, having a voice that didn't belong to him. You will never be a CEO. By the way, a CEO doesn't have to show emotions. And with a trauma. That's a lot for a young guy. And he was really not aware of it, because he forgot, of course. Mm. But let me come back once again to the trauma. And the trauma, it's an emotion or a series of emotions that trigger, would trigger high emotions and trigger your sense of safety. This is what it is. And then our brain is, processing all the trauma, for all the emotions. So if the emotions are processed correctly, for example, so imagine that I have this metaphor that the brain is a house. In the house, you have rooms. So now imagine that you have a bed. So the bed is an emotion. Okay. And the bed goes to the bedroom. This is okay. The emotion is processed. Now imagine that you have a car, and you find the car in the living room. That's a bit of a problem, because this emotion, the car, is not processed. And then the problem is, imagine now that you want to watch TV. You have a hard time with the TV in the middle of the living room, or you want to talk to people. So it affects the way you connect with yourself. So the work is to be aware of this car and to put back the car to the garage. So, and then the emotion is processed, and then you can, you open the door, you free yourself, and you can do that. So in that case, so this guy went with those two, and then you challenge, the mind traps, and you challenge the voices behind that. So is it true that I cannot be a CEO? Of course not. And so on and so on. But to be more specific, what is important there is if I just have one message, because I know we don't have a lot of time and it's a lot of concepts and I don't want, to lose everybody. But it's really to be aware of this, this emotion, this lock, this where you're stuck. And for example, if you see yourself on somebody changing behavior out of the blue, think about it. It's a clue. It's a clue that you are trapped somewhere, and again, it can happen anytime with somebody, talking to somebody, or in a certain situation or whatever. It's because it's a trap. When it's not fluid, when you don't feel like, okay, so you have all the power, you want to do that way, you want to connect with people, so that means that it works. But for example, if you see a leader who have a difficulty to connect with their team, another clue. Difficulty to get feedback, difficulty to ask for help, another clue. So they should be, stuck somewhere, and it affects their performance.
Absolutely. So a couple things I'm taking away just as we finish up, because there's a lot of content there, is, one of the things to keep an eye out, either in you or the folks around you, like your team, is that somewhere is a belief. And in principle, a limiting belief that was either put there by yourself or put there from somebody else, likely through trauma, and that it is an emotion. And that emotion then creates a state. And that for you as a leader to be aware of, or at least in the presence of, what is the state? And then if you recognize you're in a unusual state, then what is the trigger? What is the emotion? And at the heart of it, to unlock yourself, and of course, in the book will be more kind of context on how to do that, is just recognize, hey, is that belief true? And what I am left with, and Hortense, I'll ask people how they can connect with you and get the book and stuff. And what I'm left with is that, not everybody listening to this is going to be the CEO of a $100 million company or $1 billion company. But these traps impact your family, your friends, your business. And so it's not just leading in the business sense, it's limiting your ability to be fully in life because of these beliefs that you put there or somebody else put there, and that unlocking them is the pathway to, really a better life. And
exactly,
if that's not worth $20, why not? I just sheepishly, but it's true. But the hard part about it is looking. The looking is the hard part. The looking is the scary part, because you have to have it right in front of your face, and that is the discomfort. But I think that one of the things I'm taking away from this is it's not that scary. And if you've got a good guide, it's even more helpful. So, Hortense, just as we finish up, anything else that you want to say to our listeners in kind of 2 minutes or less, and where they can connect with you and join the thousands, tens of thousands of other people that subscribe to your writings and that kind of stuff?
No, just encourage you to find your own path of roses and to start right away to reflect and to go to find your path, because everything changed from there. And you can find me everywhere on social. And I have on my books. I have 2 books, and I have a website with my name, and I'm here for you.
Excellent. Thank you, Hortense. I really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing your journey, because there is the stuff that you do and everything that got you there. And I think really just seeing like the person behind the book is important and helps people understand like where you're coming from and that kind of thing. So thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you, Anthony, for having me.
It was my pleasure.
My pleasure.
Folks,
My honor.
Folks, my guest today, Hortense Le Gentil. She is the author of The Unlocked Leader. One of the things that I kind of want to leave you with, because personal development work can be hard. I'm not saying it can be challenging. And in whatever time, space, place you're in, to take the time to reflect and find your path of roses, consider that there's anything possible behind that. So like you might say, hey, I'm going to spend some time and it might be challenging, or I might not get anything. And I want to invite you, you could get everything. And if that's not worth looking, I don't know what is. So, folks, thank you for being here on today's episode of the Strategy and Leadership Podcast. My name is Anthony Taylor. Please share with somebody you care about, because who knows what could happen. Thank you, Hortense, again for being my guest today. I appreciate you being here. Folks, I appreciate you for listening. I'll see you next time.